Hello again team, it's Jess or JashiiCorrin and welcome back for another video. As the title suggests, today I'm setting up for May 2021 in my bullet journal. Because I needed to film this video before I went away for the school holiday period, I decided to go with a nice easy theme of stars for May. Before we get into that setup though, we are, as per usual, going to have a look at how this month was going. So for April, I went with a cherry blossom theme, making use of craft paper and a pink, black and brown colour palette. I also incorporated printed headers into all of my spreads just to make the setup a little easier, and because I wanted to go with a typewriter font without having to perfect my typewriter hand lettering. I've really been enjoying using the pages that I set up for April though, and in particular, getting to use the productivity tracker again has been a highlight. It was also just nice to include a little more decoration on my weekly spreads than I otherwise typically do. Also, going back to trying a bunch of different styles of weekly spreads, rather than using the same one for the entire month, has been a good way to make sure that I haven't been getting bored with my journal. So I found I've actually used it a lot more consistently in April compared to my use of it in March. While my colour palette in April was a bit more muted, I wanted to bring back some vibrancy in May and also some contrast. So in terms of my colour palette, I've gone for 3 brighter colours and one that's a little bit darker. These are the Tombow Dual Brush Markers 026, which is that kind of golden colour, 725, which is the bright pink, 403, which is the blue, and 685, which is the purple. As I said, my theme is stars because stars are something I can draw quite quickly, and they're also pretty much my favourite thing to draw. Before I decided on my theme though, I of course took to social media to try and find some inspiration, and came across this picture from Bullet with E. I loved the simplicity of it and thought it would make a really good theme for me for the month coming, just as I'm in a bit of a time pinch. Rather than have the quote page be the circle of stars, I decided to put this for the May title page, and instead structured my quote page similar to what I actually had in May last year when I did my autumn leaves theme. In trying to save time when setting up this layout, I decided to again go in with some printed headers for this month. If you wanted to know how to set those up, I do have a related video in the description below. To make it even faster, I also, after months of procrastinating doing this, went and got myself a glue tape runner. This is so simple to use, you just roll it over the back of the paper like you would whiteout, but instead of laying down correction tape, it lays down double-sided sticky tape. This made sticking in all of the printed elements I used in this setup so much faster. A very worthwhile investment for me. In terms of timing, from first touch of the pen to final erasings, the quote page took about 30 minutes. As always, this time doesn't include the sketching out that was done before filming, and it also doesn't include the amount of time I spent umming and ahhing about where to actually place the lines for the quote, because that was a considerable chunk of time. With the quote page done though, it was onto the cover page, which took approximately 38 minutes. On any page that I used star decorations on, to make sure that I had a fairly even distribution of each colour, rather than putting down all the stars of one colour at once, I instead decided to alternate colours and work from one region of space to another. This is certainly more time consuming than the other option, so doing all the blue stars and then doing all the pink stars, etc. But I do think it ensured that I got a better finished product. I used my Mathomat stencil to do the black line that runs inside what is effectively a star wreath, but then added some additional lines going at different angles, kinda to make it look like there was a multi-line circle behind my stars. I like this design because it's fairly forgiving. You don't have to be really perfect with your star shapes or the line that goes behind them. On the inside of the circle though, I just wrote my May title, and this is actually the only real hand lettering that I have in my setup. Both for the added contrast and also to make sure that the word May stood out, I just filled this one in with my black Pitt Artist pen, and as I typically do, foolishly opting to use my small size Pitt Artist pen rather than a larger tip. I do this though because I prefer the quality of the black ink that comes out of their fine liners rather than their brush pens, and the same can be said for the Tombow Dual Brush Marker. I find that the black just isn't black enough to get the contrast that I want. As you can see though, we are now onto the May monthly log, and I'm going with a calendar layout for the month coming. Although I have been enjoying my kind of combination style monthly log for April, where I have half of a single page being a vertical style, and then a smaller mini calendar on the other half that I can put in icons that I can use to represent recurring events, I found that this didn't actually give me quite enough space to write down all of the different events I have, especially on days where there are multiple events happening. While that was one of the reasons I decided to go with this style for May, I also just really wanted to do a calendar with the free-floating box style, because it would better allow me to make more use of my colour palette. As per every year, I had to make sure to include It's Gonna Be May in my May setup, so you can see I put that at the top here along with my header. For the timing of my monthly log, this one took approximately 26 minutes. And as per any other page that I put stars on, this time was increased because of having to constantly change my pen colour. With the monthly log done though, we are flipping over and onto the bucket list and mood tracker pages. These ones took 22 minutes and 17 minutes respectively. Both of these pages are very star heavy, with my bucket list having decorative stars and my mood tracker having stars to fill in with a colour that represents my mood. On my bucket list, I've given myself space for 9 items. Because at the time of filming this, I was barely halfway through April though, I didn't actually want to decide on my bucket list items for May quite that early on. I did still want you guys to get a pretty good feel for what this page should look like when it's filled in though. So instead of printing out all of my intended bucket list items, I just printed out one and then had 8 other blank boxes. As can be expected, those ones are going to be replaced with actual bucket list items, but just so you guys could kind of see what it should look like, I wanted to include them here. So that they're easily removable when I do come to put in my bucket list items, I've just blue tacked them to my page for this shot. As I said, my mood tracker works along the idea of having a star for each day that I can fill in with a colour that represents my mood. A good tip if you're doing a mood tracker like this one is that when you go to pencil in your stars, make sure you're counting them out. When sketching out my layout, I accidentally put in more stars than was necessary, so I was constantly counting and recounting when penning this one in. Thankfully I did end up only putting in 31 though, at least by my count. If I'm wrong, just don't tell me, let me live in blissful ignorance. Along with the larger stars that I'll be colouring in for my moods, I also wanted to fill the extra space with some smaller stars, some being filled in with black and some being left blank. I figured this would just help tie it to the decoration I put on my other spreads. I know this page is going to end up super colourful by the end of May, and I am really excited to see how it turns out. Flipping over though, we're onto the page that took the least amount of time to set up, coming in at 1.5 minutes, and that is my habit tracker. I wanted to do mini calendars for my habit tracker in May, but I did not want to spend the time it normally takes to set this up. So what I did was made myself a printable on the computer that I could just print, cut out, and stick in. I decided to put black around all of the mini calendars so that I didn't have to cut them all out separately, and I'll end up getting good contrast between the black and the colours that I used to fill in those mini calendars. This printable is also available on my Patreon, so if you're interested in checking that out, you'll be able to find the link to my Patreon in the description box below. The second quickest page in this monthly setup, coming in at 2.5 minutes, was the action steps page I'm setting up here. This one just contains 4 boxes to write down my action steps for each of my goals in May. As we flip over, question of the day for you guys, what is your theme for the month coming? One of my goals for April is to set up a giveaway bullet journal for the second half of the year. So I'd love to hear what themes you guys are doing, or if you have any ideas for the giveaway journal in particular, I'd love to hear those too. Here I'm setting up my social media schedule though, and this one took 8 minutes. I've gone back to a layout similar to the one that I used in March, because I've been finding that the one I'm using in April isn't really as user-friendly as I'd like it to be. It doesn't really leave enough space to write down the content that I want to post across my various platforms, in particular if I'm posting to multiple of them on any given day. The page I'm setting up here is a time tracker, and this one took 7 minutes from first touch of the pen to final erasings. If you watched my goal planner check-in video from a few weeks ago, you know that my focus for Q2 is my work-life balance. This is something that I have struggled with for so long. So I figured that having a time tracker to monitor how well I'm sticking to the routines that I'm trying to build for myself would be a good idea. You'll see I put some dotted lines on this one to represent where I want my sleep hours to stop and start. And as we get closer to May, I'll also be putting in some additional dotted lines to represent when I want my work hours to be. For a flip through of the pages I've set up though, we have my quote and cover page for May, the calendar style monthly log with the obligatory It's Gonna Be May header, my May bucket list and mood tracker, habit tracker and space for my action steps, my social media schedule and time tracker page. With all of the stars and bright colours, I am really looking forward to using this setup next month. I hope you guys found today's video enjoyable. If you did like it, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to my channel for more on planning, productivity, and personal development. Until next time, bye!